And if you could take all of those surveys and put them into very structured data, the inconsistencies you'd find are astonishing. And sometimes it's really simple stuff like how many floors are there? Sometimes it's because those people can't count. Fine. It's just a simple mistake. Sometimes it's because it's floors above ground. Sometimes they've included the basements. Sometimes they just haven't seen something. But as soon as that data can't be trusted, or as soon as one bit of data is wrong, none of the data can be trusted. So that one of the first things we can do with AI, with these data models, is to start going, well, wait a second, you've just chucked a new survey into this property or this building. Can we just double check these things? I think it's quite difficult for people to be objective, isn't it? As a risk assessor, there's quite a lot of weight on your shoulders. I mean, whether you're a risk assessor or whether you're doing something else, in that you're always going to want to err on the side of caution, because you don't want somebody to turn around to you 5-10 years later and go, but you said this. And without that context, without saying, well, this is why I've made this decision, it's quite difficult to justify that stuff. And I think I am relatively objective. I'm quite data orientated, and I see a lot of different risk assessments, and the inconsistency between two people looking at the same building, and can be quite astonishing. And it's not because one person isn't as good as the other; it's because they viewed it from a different perspective. And when we look at, I don't want to talk about RiskBase, but we're a management platform. We've got loads of data. And one of the things that we will see is we might have 4 or 5 different consultants that have gone to a building, to a property. The building might have been owned by different people over a period. It might have had slightly different use, but it will have had so many different touch points by various experts looking at things from different perspectives. And if you could take all of those surveys and put them into very structured data, the inconsistencies you'd find are astonishing. And sometimes it's really simple stuff like how many floors are there? Sometimes it's because those people can't count. Fine. It's just a simple mistake. Sometimes it's because it's floors above ground. Sometimes they've included the basements. Sometimes they just haven't seen something. But as soon as that data can't be trusted, or as soon as one bit of data is wrong, none of the data can be trusted. So that one of the first things we can do with AI, with these data models, is to start going, well, wait a second, you've just chucked a new survey into this property or this building. Can we just double check these things? And this utopia that everybody has of, all the data needs to be perfectly structured. We'll have one form field which says how many stories there are. Doesn't work because there's so many ways of measuring it.
I know at least 3 different ways of measuring the height of a building, and it depends on what you're doing on which method you need to use. But it does sound like that there could be some good uses for it. My next question is sort of how do we get there? How can we help people gather data in a way that's useful for AI? Is it different to gathering data for just a statistician who wants this? Is there a different way that AI likes data on these things? How can we help get that data and start gathering it over the next 5-10 years so that we've got that pool available? If I start with you, Peter.
I don't think it'd be 5 years, to be honest. I think it's gonna come very, very quickly. I think we're going to be surprised at the change of pace in terms of the implementation of AI in safety and then into fire safety. I think one of the challenges that we've got in fire safety, if I may go there, that we don't necessarily have, so say in health and safety, right? I'm not going to try and sell it on your podcast, by the way, delete this out if you don't like it. But, I work with an organization that specializes in AI for health and safety risk assessment. So you can upload a risk assessment and it will do an analysis of that risk assessment based against all of the available information in the system. So everything that comes from the HSE, everything that comes from lessons learned from other organizations, etc. One of the things that I fear about fire safety is that we don't necessarily have like one singer, one song in terms of the HSE guidance. That is the guidelines that we tend to follow. And I'll give you for an example, fire doors, okay? We've got a lot of conflicting fire guidance around fire doors. So if I ask AI a question about fire doors, and I say, right, what is the, I don't know, the threshold gap of blah in this circumstances, it's going to go, well, according to BS 8214, you've got this, and 9999, you should check it on this frequency. And if it's healthcare HTMO5, mate, I'm bragging here now, George, I'm trying to impress you with all my knowledge, right? It's not written down in front of me. You know, BWF, BM Trada, Fire Safety England regulations. And this is one of the things that I fear about AI in fire safety, is that we've got so much conflict that it's actually going to struggle to give you the answer. Because we can train AI in all of this information, but then it's in our industry, it's gonna require someone to put that in the context of the building and the risk that it's in. And it's like, we can get it to give us the simple answer, but it's going to take the next level in order to provide it based on the context and the risk profile within the building. Does that make sense?
Yeah, well, I think those are things to happen. You're talking about, inconsistencies between standards and things. That's something that we can make more consistent, and that will take a while, if that was a direction to go. But yeah, that's something we can do as an industry, and like I say, get it in a place so that AI can do that. I think there might be some worries about simplifying things down, because often these are decisions people have made for specific reasons, but
I did think of a workaround on it quick. Sorry, Adam, mate. I did think of a workaround on it, though, is that if you had a really good fire safety policy within your organization, if you had a really good fire safety policy that identified all the relevant guidance and legislation, but it identified what we do as a standard within the risk profile of the building based on the fire strategy, based on other fire engineers' guidance, for example, or, based on the risk profile of the most recent fire risk assessment, then there's no reason why AI couldn't do a review of whatever you put in based against that. So you can overcome these challenges, but it's just us as an industry trying to work out how we do that.
Don't you then end up with a situation where everything goes into your fire safety policy, and then you've got to update your fire safety policy because that's reinvented the wheel, because it's got chunks of 9999 and a little bit of 8214. And then, Steve worked at BM Trada and he's got this view on it. And they can all be perfectly valid views. But when that thinking changes, then you've got to update that policy. So then you've got to go and have something else that's going to update the policy. I mean, we have these challenges with information security for us, and it is just this continuously moving goalposts, and you want to do the best thing, but actually sometimes you can just tie yourself in knots. So I think context is so important, and it's getting away from that tick box. It's getting away from this idea of, are you compliant? Is this risk proportionate? And if a surveyor or an assessor or an engineer goes out and says, this is what I think, and this is why I think it, and this is what I've used, this is the guidance I've relied on, it's this bit, it's this excerpt. Somebody can turn around 5 years later and go, well, I disagree with you now, but at least I can see why you thought that, and you're not negligent, you didn't not consider the issues here. And in terms of safety and risk assessment, that's what I think we want people to see. And hopefully this move to safety cases and the building safety regime promotes that a little bit, because for me it's been frustrating over the past 5 or 10 years where it does feel like the sector has got a little bit stale, and we're doing the same things over and over again, and I think the data bit is so important. And unfortunately people think of data and they think of spreadsheets and everything fitting into these lovely neat columns, and it's not how people think.
Yeah, but that it's possibly a strong suit of AI is being able to help with that and merge together things that aren't in specific columns, but
if you can give AI structured data in the columns, great, yeah, brilliant, because it's going to very quickly give you some statistics, and there are some things that will fit into that. So if the HSE are collecting information, if the fire services are collecting information, perfect. But for me, the big strength is AI's ability to deal with that unstructured data. And it's not necessarily going to turn it into a perfect structure for you afterwards, but it's going to have a pretty good go at it. As Pete says, even if using ChatGPT, you ask it what the source is.
Yeah. Well, one of the uses I had heard was for people use it a lot for programming in other industries and using a language model for fire simulators, fire modelling, fire dynamic simulator, which can be quite a difficult program to use and requires a lot of learning. And if that could be made easier through the use of a language model that was you were able to chat to, knew all the inputs, and could help you design the coding and the wording that you needed to use on the program. Is that something that you think could be effective? I know people have tried it and not had success so far, I believe.
I mean, this is where you show that you're much cleverer than we are, I think.
I'm glad you answered that, Adam, because I was sat there thinking, if you come to me, I'm going to go, I really don't know how to answer that.
I think certainly in the development world, there's a whole load of people using AI to write code. And I think at the moment, certainly if you want AI to write some fairly simple code, you definitely can do that. But the skill of a software developer, is their ability to architect an application. It's getting things to interact with each other. And I think the same applies, if you're looking at CFD or any other kind of modeling, the skill is in the person that's informing the application to create the model. So I'm sure AIs will have a part to play in it, and maybe some of it becomes simpler. I don't see it replacing things. I really see AI as just trying to take some of the donkey work out of what we're doing and making us more accurate.
Yeah, because a lot of people worry about AI taking jobs away and things, but where I've seen it be most effective is a person plus AI. Is where it seems to be most effective, is bringing the two together in other industries, at least. If you'd agree with that, Peter?
Yeah, I agree. I sort of feel like, and again, I'm happy for Adam to give me a different opinion, but I sort of feel like we won't necessarily go, this is an AI application for fire safety. I feel like the way we're going to see it is we're going to see it integrated in buildings through, say, something like digital twins. So say you'll have a digital twins application for a building that will start to have some fire safety information in there in terms of maybe even linked to IoT, real-time sensors. So you can have like IoT sensors on fire doors that will tell you information such as like how long it's taken for this fire door to close once opened, how often it's used in terms of frequency. If it's failing to close, i.e. if someone's wedged it, if it's damaged, that can communicate, and then we could start to use some sort of AI integration into these systems to pick out and identify hotspots. So say you manage a large organization, you've got 1,000 buildings. You can start to use that system and it can start to prioritize risks within certain hotspots of your buildings based on the number and the frequency of incidents/defects identified. And what I mean by that as well is that when we have a very large organization, it's very easy to go, well, we've only got 10 defects, across a large organization. You go, well, across 1,000 buildings, 10 defects is nothing. That's fine. No, all 10 defects are in one building. And that one building, we've got 15 peeps. It's like, all right, now that's a big risk. Okay, and I know this sounds silly, but sometimes it does need a system to tell us that when you're managing on that scale, that just to have that second pair of eyes that goes, actually, all of these are in one area. You need to look at this now. You need to flag this up. So I don't feel like we're going to go, right, today I've bought fire safety AI software. I feel like the software is going to start to be integrated into our buildings, and then AI is going to have an application. And that's important because when we talk about data, so what we're saying is like, okay, how do we collate the data in order to be able to put that into AI? Well, I don't think we necessarily will. Not all of it. We will have sensors. We have the fire alarm systems are so much smarter than they used to be now in terms of their communication, in terms of what you can link them to and how you can share the information they're recording. And it wouldn't take a lot to put those into a system and then later on have some AI application.
I think the interesting stuff with that as well, though, is as we move to a safety case regime where we're being a little bit more intelligent about how a building is supposed to be managed, if you've got a load of scenarios and you've got a claim argument evidence model and you're saying, well, actually, I've got all of these things in the building which are supposed to keep me safe. And you look at fire doors, for instance. Okay, well, I've got some extended travel distances and I've got a smoke control system. That smoke control system suddenly becomes really important. And then when you go, actually, flat 17, there's a peep in there and we've got another issue. That's when AI can do the really cool stuff with, a 20 quid IoT sensor on a door going, wait a second, this is jammed open. And we've also got, we've got a fault with the smoke control or whatever it is. But you go, wait a second, actually, this is now really a major issue because it's a significant risk. And as Peter said, it's not risk plus risk, it's risk times risk. So yeah, the IoT bit is cool because it's just giving us more data to analyze. And when we put it into a system, that's when you can make some really effective decisions.